everybody, we're back with Mandy Rodriguez, the preneed specialist at Brown Funeral Home. And we're gonna give today, she's gonna be giving us 3 great tips for consumers. I get a lot of questions from you guys about, what about our money? And what if the funeral home closes? And what if this? And how do I know things are legit? Because you do see a lot of bad news stories about funeral homes stealing money and things happening. So wanted to kind of give you just a little bit of empowerment to make sure things are the way they should be. So Mandy, what is your number 1 tip when it comes to ensuring money is safe?
Yeah, absolutely. Number 1 is I want to make sure that as a consumer, you know what you're paying for. So have the funeral director go over and tell them, what does this include? And make sure if they're telling you that something's included, make sure it shows up someplace on that contract. And not only what's included, but I want you to ask them what's guaranteed. So what fees are guaranteed, what fees are not guaranteed. As a funeral director or pre-need specialist, we should be going over the guaranteed fees of the funeral home and then cash advances so that the family understands for cash advance and opening and closing set aside for the cemetery, or newspaper obituaries that have become astronomical in price lately.
Yes.
Yeah, that the $50 they put away in 1980 might not be enough to pay for the 2021 obituary.
Yeah.
So I just think really understanding the contract. And then third, something you should always go over with your families is, where is your money going? It is never kept by the funeral home.
It should not be kept.
Correct. And so I always let our families know, within 30 days, they're either going to get a statement from the trust company or they're going to get a statement from the funeral specific life insurance. There's Homesteaders, NGL, Forethoughts been around, but just letting them know they're going to get a statement from there. The numbers should match.
Right.
So if they gave me $5,500, showing up on that NGL contract or the statement from NGL should be $5,500. And then when I'm sitting down with a family, I think another thing you should ask for is it irrevocable? Can it be made irrevocable? We have lots of families now. We have loved ones who are going into assisted living facilities and they have to make things irrevocable so it doesn't count against them for Medicaid. Just letting a family know and putting their mind at ease that any arrangements that you make with us today can be made irrevocable. That's a big word that we are hearing from more and more of our families, and I think we're going to see that number continue to grow.
So an irrevocable means that your money's not yours to take back anymore. Anytime you can come in and cash in an insurance policy, you can cash in your trust and you can take the money back. There may be a fee kept by a funeral home, sometimes 10%, but funeral homes don't always keep it.
Right.
But it's a cancellation fee like you might see anywhere if you go make a purchase, like a restocking fee that they have if you send something back to Amazon sometimes. But so making it irrevocable means that you can't cash that in ever. It has to stay with the funeral home, and the benefit to that means it's not an asset counting against you to get that aid anymore. So like spend down is a big word that you might hear, and I don't know, I'm sure you see it too, where all of a sudden you get people calling and it's like the 28th of the month and they're in a panic and they're trying to get their parent or their loved one qualified for this aid to get them in a nursing home or to get them somewhere, but they don't have the irrevocable form. So they'll be like, I need it and I need it right now. And so it's like, it's okay. It's one paper. We can take care of it. And it's a simple process.
It is.
And so, but that urgency is there, I think, a lot when it comes to irrevocable, because they're fearful that one thing might stand in the way of getting their loved one
the care they need.
Yeah.
And I think explaining to families irrevocable doesn't mean you can't change it, which is something that I commonly hear, that irrevocable means no change. That's not what it means.
No.
If your loved one had a cremation and you want a traditional or vice versa, you can change. You just can't physically have that money back in hand. It has to go to the state of Michigan first, before it's refunded back to the family on a pre-need basis, and then at need it should go back to the state of Michigan as well.
Yeah. Or you can spend it on other funeral things too. If you want to maybe do some luncheon or something like that, or headstone, you can always, if there's overage, spend
Right.
on funeral things.
Absolutely.
You just can't have it back if it's irrevocable.
Right. I
So-
can't put $50,000 away. You can.
Yes.
Right.
No, that's a
Right.
really great reception
Right.
afterwards.
Right.
Now, I know one thing to kind of go in with that, every state is different in
Mhm.
terms of how much you can put in.
Mhm.
So what is the Michigan cap of how much you can pre-fund?
Well, it would depend on if you're doing insurance or if you're doing a trust. And then you have things called burial exclusions as well. So with your funeral specific insurance, right now it's going to go up to 11,210, I think was the last number. With Medicaid, most counties will tell you it's around the $13,000 mark. It's supposed to be the same in the state of Michigan. It'll depend on the county that you work with. And then there are things called burial exclusions as well that you can write on a separate contract. So your burial opening and closing, or some people call it interment and recording, markers, your vault setting, your vault, all of those can go onto a burial exclusion as well. They'll have, if it's a piece of merchandise that's been delivered, you don't have to have it on a contract. If it's at the cemetery, you just have to show proof that it was paid for. So sometimes you'll see amounts that are several thousands of dollars if it's a marker that's already set out there. Let's say it's a granite and they bought a very large one and that's an $8,000. That
Yeah.
can be made irrevocable. It just has to show that it's been delivered.
Okay. Now, is there anything you can't put on the contract legally?
So, and I hate to tell you that it depends on the county, but I just had one county tell me that I couldn't put clergy honorariums on there. And I came back, I showed them the Medicaid law and showed them that I believe this is an allowable expense. So it used to be you just couldn't, and now they're saying luncheons can't be put on for a spend down. So the law says one thing, might depend on the county that you work with, but I believe the only thing that we can't put on there right now would be your luncheons.
Okay.
You can put clothing for the deceased on there. You can put some travel expenses, depending on where they might be at. You can put luncheon, death certificates, newspapers. Most counties let me do not only the clergy honorarium, but they'll let me do the musician and soloist honorarium because
Okay.
those are people taking part. So to my knowledge, it's just luncheons that most counties are saying no to.
Okay. And you get into some states where there's not really caps that you can put
Right.
in $50,000 if you
Right.
want,
Yeah.
which I think gets a little tricky. Or when you get into a state that has a funeral home cemetery combo,
Yes.
and you're doing a lot of things
Right.
with the cemetery in that pre-funding as well,
Exactly.
and things. So it's different in every state.
It is.
How it is. And I never understood how the numbers are never like, okay, it's going to be 11,200. It's always these weird, random, like $11,088.
Right.
It's like, how did they come up with this? But
Yes.
there are restrictions to some of that. Summarizing some of this, making sure they have a contract, making sure it's itemized, clearly spelled out, guaranteed, not guaranteed, having a copy in your own possession to keep at home.
Yes.
Families that come in will bring this whole packet that mom had in a file that has all the copies, and they're like, here it is. But I can see some funeral homes may not have all of it and they only kept part or something. So it is great to keep a record of all the information. Make sure it's not just a price quote.
Correct.
And that it's an actual contract, because I see families do that too. They'll bring in a quote
And think it's paid for.
and then it's paid for, and it's not at all. And the numbers are really ballparked because they were just chatting through maybe some ideas.
Right.
And there's really nothing on file except this quote. And then also making sure they have a receipt, like you've said, but who's that made out to? Or where should they make out their money to when they bring in that money?
To where their money is supposed to be held at. So if it's a funeral specific policy, and let's say that the company uses NGL, it should be made out to NGL. If it's to Abbott Trust or Michigan Funeral Directors Trust, it should be made out to those specific people. There would be really no reason that they would need to make it to our funeral home. It should be
Don't write a check to a funeral home for a preneed, guys.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. not good. A funeral home can hold the money for a short period of time, like hold on to that check before they send it in, where maybe a family comes in and the person is near end but not quite, and we've had where they give a check and the person actually dies like the next day or something, and so you can then cancel that and change it and stuff. But don't write a check to the funeral home. Just gonna put that one out there. So
there's no reason.
No, it benefits nothing, and that way you know your money's not going to the funeral home. It's not in that funeral home. So if they close, your money wasn't with the funeral home. It's always with that third party. You kind of have that peace of mind. If you write the check to the third party, your money's at the third party. So it's just a good way to to keep track of that. So all right, guys, those are some tips from Mandy, our pre-need specialist again. So drop your questions below. Let me know what other questions you have about this. Bye, guys.
Thank you.